the ABC of CBD. Tonight it's just me. Unfortunately, Russ is not well. What we're going to do is we're going to play the sponsor and then we're going to move straight on with the show. But great to see you all. What's up, guys? I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD. A product created by users for users. A product at an affordable price, available everywhere, at any time, at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price. So what is up, everybody? Welcome to Thursday night. This is the ABC of CBD. You are joined live by me, Ollie Mammon. My co-host Russ is unfortunately riddled with that wonderful COVID. He's one of the last people in the UK to actually finally get it. But he's in a bad way, so he will not be joining us tonight. But we're episode 74. We're joined by an incredible guest. And, you know, through the efforts of many of our other guests, we've been trying to get Kyle on the show for quite a while now. You know, Jamie Bartley tried. Jade Proudman tried, and then I tried, but we're finally joined by him, Mr. Carl Esplin. We're going to have a great conversation today regarding hemp and a couple of things about cannabis, which even I didn't know about. So it's going to be an incredible conversation. Let's welcome on our guest.
Hey, thanks so much, Oliver. Great to be here. Great to join on the show.
Thank you so much for coming. I usually do these really long-winded introductions. Okay, generally I love the sound of my own voice, and I like to talk for 10 minutes before I bring a guest on to steal my thunder and steal my spotlight. But I feel like with you, there's a hell of a lot more which needs to come from you, and it's not about the introduction I give; it's about the life you've lived. Like one thing I want to say, which I was just saying to you in the break room before you came on, and which everyone at the end of the show, you'll understand why I'm saying this. Thank you, Carl, for taking your life struggles and putting them into something which is going to help so many other people. Thank you for taking the life you've lived and turning it into an education to help guide people. And, you know, like, thank you for all of your efforts, you know, kind of building a foundation, because, you know, what we're going to talk about today, like I said, it's not really something which even I'm that familiar with. It's something which I've heard discussed over the last few years, but it's nothing really that we've ever discussed on the show. Now, we're going to move into that a little bit later on, but the idea is that for a very, very, very long time, Kyle's been studying the idea of post-viral fatigue, okay? And he's been studying how cannabis and post-viral fatigue how cannabis can help post-viral fatigue syndrome. Now, with this being in the wake of COVID, seeing the amount of you could call it viral destruction, which has been caused, the amount of people who are still suffering months, if not years after they've cleared themselves from COVID, the respiratory ailments, the general fatigue, the general degradation of the sorry, my brain's gone blank. The general degradation of the immune system and the human body through viruses like COVID. There's like a lot of, you could call it other ailments which come off the back of that. And a lot of the research which Kyle has done over the last 10 years actually has really become poignant in the last few, I want to say the last few months. You know, it's become extremely poignant, extremely valuable. And I know that Carl's done a lot of work in the hemp industry. I know that he's the head of the Scottish Hemp Association. Like Jamie Bartley, we've had on the show several times, speaks extremely highly of Carl, and he's actually tried to connect us before. But as Carl said, the hemp conversation has been had over and over again. And I really, not to skip it, because I'm going to let Carl talk about it, but I really want to talk about this idea of long COVID and the studies you've encouraged and the medicinal trials which you've encouraged over the last couple of years, if that's okay.
Great. Wonderful. We'd love to cover it. It's something that's not covered enough, Oliver, so I'd love to.
It's not covered at all. It's not covered at all. So, you know what? Screw it. Let's just dive straight into that. So, about 10 years ago, okay, you were a traveling musician, right? And about 10 years ago, you lived an active lifestyle. You were traveling around the world. You were an active pianist. What grade are you, by the way?
So here's the thing. I've never done piano lessons in my life, and I've been a professional musician my whole life. I'm self-taught. I come from a musical family. It's in the blood.
Very nice. You just have one of those musical ears.
Yeah, from musical ear, it's learned this chord structure, and I play by ear and sing and play and do shows. Yeah.
Very cool. So you were a musical performer. You were traveling around the world. You were living this active lifestyle, and then what happened?
So summer 2012. I was living a great lifestyle. I was living in Mallorca at the time. I'd actually moved out to there and had planned to be spending more time there. Summer 2012, I was traveling. I was doing a show on a cruise ship at the time. I actually one of the same names that turned back up on the news in recent times. And I was in the Mediterranean. And I was on board for a week or 10 days or so, the usual. I'll fly on, do a couple of shows and leave. And I felt myself being struck down by a chest viral infection that just came with rapid onset, and it felt unlike any other sort of chest infection I had. I felt like I'd been sort of hitting the chest with a stone, like I'd been sort of totally winded, and I felt my nervous system was tingling, and it was like something had gone seriously wrong in my system. So a few days later, I was back in Mallorca. I went to see the doctor, and at this point, I was just so extremely sort of fatigued and beaten up. The doctor at the time, I'll be honest, he was quite loose with his ways on his approach to having a look over things and then giving a solution a go, So it was pretty much, he gave me one course of antibiotics and gave me the choice that if I felt I needed the second one a week later, go ahead.
So it was a 1 week course. It was a very short course of antibiotics as well, because they give antibiotics for a week, they give antibiotics for a month, they give antibiotics for 2 months. It's different courses.
So what I was given first was not necessary, wrong, and just inappropriate for the situation. So a week later, I'd taken the second course. With my schedule in entertainment, our workload is, let's say, there's intense periods, but there's periods where you're traveling things that are off, and it's all focuses down just on one hour show, perhaps, where you really need to pull it off. And as they say, the show must go on. A lot of us in that industry, we feel we can push through and recover later, or take the time off later. So
you can rest tomorrow. That's like the idea, right? It's the whole idea of I can sleep tomorrow, I can rest tomorrow, whereas the gig is now and I've got to perform.
And usually it's okay. Usually it works out fine, So on this occasion, though, it felt extremely heavy from the start. I've been given antibiotics I probably didn't need. I went and travelled while not totally well in the sort of onset, but I thought it was just the usual chest infection of sorts. And then sort of around 10 days or so, my health just deteriorated. After that, I was staying in the apartment in Mallorca. I woke up in the middle of the night feeling very strange, and I checked my heart rate, and it had gone down like below 30 beats a minute, which I'd never seen it do before. It was like down 28 beats a minute, which was quite scary. I got up and walked around, and that didn't change. It was just really slow. It felt like it was going to stop. I then lost consciousness for some time. I came to. This was now sort of 6, 7 in the morning. I didn't really want the hassle of trying to deal with the ambulance and things like that, so I waited till the doctor had opened, went to see him. He said I was probably suffering from some inflammation in the lungs following the infection. Could I rest for a couple of weeks? And I said, well, I'm supposed to be touring like Germany, doing an album like 10 days from now. What do you think? And he said, well, I could give you a low-dose steroid injection, rest for a week, and you'll be fine. And I said, steroids, is that not like, is there a risk there for some side effect? He said, no, it's just a minimum dose, you'll be fine. So after that, a few days later, I felt sort of kind of fine and continued on. And then it was about a month later where my health...
That usually happens when you get like a whole bunch of steroids injected into your system. Usually you do feel alive. I mean, that's the purpose of steroids. It kind of like brings you up and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to go. Okay, let's go gym.
Sure, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's a minimum amount, rest for a week, you'll be fine. But I think in the context of the immune system where it was at, all the doctors in the UK were horrified that he would do that in that scenario. that was the response. But all doctors had different ideas.
Literally give you a shot and send you on your way. It's like the old school. It's almost our worst nightmare, isn't it? That horrible worst nightmare of going to the doctor is he just gives you a shot and sends you on your way and doesn't actually take time to actually try and understand or evaluate your situation. There's no analytics there whatsoever. Just
Yeah. I mean, I think he was fairly on target with his probably inflammation in my lungs was bothering me, but the idea of the steroid injection was not what most would recommend in that scenario, let's say. So I did this tour and sort of managed, but didn't feel 100% and never felt 100% sort of from then on. I went traveling again a couple of weeks later out some other cruise ship, and then my health just completely crashed. It's like a complete loss of homeostasis, my interaction with the outside world, with temperature, my heart rate, just everything had gone wrong. The way my body was reacting to food, energy production, sleep, metabolism, it just felt like it completely crashed. And I thought at that point I should head back to Scotland or come back to the NHS, see if they had any solutions. So from that point, it was then I was first misdiagnosed. Misdiagnosed as just having pulled some muscles between my intercostals from coughing too much, and that's what all this pain and discomfort was. Sent to a physiotherapist, told to take ibuprofen at maximum dosage 3 times a day for a few weeks.
Just treating it like they're now treating it like any any form of muscle inflammation, inflammatory disease. Yeah. Standard go-to.
So then, like 4 or 6 weeks later, when I've got all these really, really awkward symptoms, it feels like my body's going to shut down and things going on like this, and ended up in the hospital late at night for checks to see what's happening. They were saying it's probably because you're taking ibuprofen 3 times a day. It's like, oh yeah, no, it's not because of that, but you told me to take this. So that gone on for some time. I then had been off work for nearly a couple of months. At this point, I thought I've been off work for 2 months and pretty much resting, and I don't feel right. I don't feel back to normal, but there's no solution. Nothing else is happening. What to do?
Were you getting better? Were you getting worse, or was it just staying the same?
It was very strange and erratic. I never felt right at any point, and I felt like it was like every day it wasn't quite getting better like I thought it was. There was something deep down was wrong, but I had cancelled so much of my entertainment work, and then I had another travel coming up, which was actually I was flying to Morocco, and I was taking a ship across the ocean to Florida just for 1 week, doing a couple of shows and flying back again. And after the ibuprofen for 6 weeks, whatever, my stomach was all thrown out from that, and from the post-viral imbalance, the stomach is greatly connected. There's a disbalance known, but ibuprofen was put in there. I transited Morocco, and within 24 hours, I was down with some new infection. My immune system seemed to have collapsed. I picked something up in Morocco. I tried to do 1 show on the ship that time. I managed the first one, and then I cancelled my second scheduled one from then on. Ended up at the doctor's now in the middle of the ocean, there was no way to get off from where I was. And the doctors were saying, don't know what's wrong with you, but you're really sick, and you should probably.
Of course, because it's a cruise ship doctor. It's a cruise ship doctor as well now, isn't it? It's not even like. It's not like,
now I'm on a cruise ship doctor.
Yeah, it's just like some.
Oh yeah, we moved around. First, I'm in Mallorca with the guy who hands out things loosely. And moved around the NHS, misdiagnosed, put to the physiotherapist.
You thought, screw it, I might as well try the doctor on board a boat, right? What's the worst that could happen?
An international team which has just come together. So they were like, don't know what's wrong with you, but you're clearly very ill and your heart's been very strange, so you should probably see a cardiologist. And I was although I had that slow heart rate, following that point, it was more racing heart was an issue.
How old were you at the time, Carl?
30 years old.
So you were 30 years old? Sorry, yeah. You were 30?
I was going to say, and that's actually right. That's right on the average age of where post-viral fatigue syndromes take healthy sort of folks out of their, they were doing well in life and they were healthy, and now all of a sudden they've been knocked out.
So you've got 30-year-old. So let me just recap. So you've got 30-year-old rock star Kyle, who's used to traveling the world, you know, smashing the keys on his piano, making melodies for whoever happens to be in the room in front of him, like quite lively, quite energetic. Also, you're living a life of travel. So that's also, you know, like it's not only performing, you're then traveling as well, which is also exhausting. So you are like
Yeah,
a fully active, fully fit person. And you had no history of these sorts of ailments in the past, had you? It just came out of nowhere.
sure. Yeah. It
Yeah,
was just
fine.
it was just a chest infection. That to me, it started as just a bad chest infection. You know, I thought it was just going to be one that would go away like it always had, and this was something that never went away, and
But
things
had
have
you suffered
never.
from asthma? Had you suffered from
No,
bronchitis? Had you suffered from
no.
chest issues? You know, were you born with a congenital lung defect, which meant you were more susceptible to these sorts of viral? You were just a normal. I just want to get this out there because it's important
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I'm
No,
trying
no.
to.
Just
I'm trying to build the foundation of the story so someone doesn't assume that
yeah.
that maybe he had an issue. You know, like this doesn't just happen to everyone. Maybe there was an
Sure,
underlying health condition.
sure. No. So this is something that's being there's some indication of there are some genetic types seem increased susceptibility where you could be healthy, fit, and your immune system could deal well with a whole bunch of things, but you might have a susceptibility to a certain variety or type of problem. And actually, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the DNA genetic testing that's related to your own unique cannabinoid. What's the words? I've lost the word here. Your genetic, your SNPs. You know.
Your cannabinoid deficiencies.
What's the? I've lost the term here. So DNA testing that is correlated to what is known of various genetic types to endocannabinoid system signaling and various health outcomes. There's a company. So actually, I took part in a clinical trial. It's something I haven't spoken about, and actually on any show. I took part in a clinical trial, which was one Dr. Ethan Russo set up.
Amazing.
So this was a trial to look for genetic types that were susceptible to
Just quickly, Carl, just quickly, in case you guys don't know, Dr. Ethan Russo is like a Mac Daddy of this industry. I mean, like he is a mind above all other minds. You know, I mean, he's incredible. Like literally one of the founding fathers of you could call it medical cannabis thought in the world. So, and a leading, if not the leading expert on medical cannabis thought. He's an incredible dude. Just to kind of put context into the trial which Carl was in.
He's done the clinical oversight for all the first cannabinoid medicines that were released on the market, of course, as well. So Dr. Ethan Russo had set up a trial to look for a genetic basis for cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. And they were needing a control group of people who have been consuming cannabinoids regular and to do a detailed feedback, and a DNA sample was taken for breakdown, and there was a few discoveries they have since found in that. So as I took part in that trial, I got a further breakdown of what was known about my own genetic code, let's say, to various health outcomes and where cannabinoid signaling and also cannabinoid interaction was known. For example, like the people who have the concern of what if they're predisposed to psychotic or schizophrenic type disorders and they should avoid THC. Well, that's correlated to a specific genetic type. So you could have your genetics tested and see if you're in that high risk group or not, and it'll tell you. That's available to find out.
Amazing. Very cool.
So
I've spoken to a few of these companies out there.
Sorry, so I showed up, let's say, healthy in the results, but there can be a couple things correlated to different infections of sorts. But I was a healthy individual and completely just struck down, knocked out of action. And what people can't quite understand about, there was this sort of six months of a disturbance. I mean, I had a steady sort of downward trend, but with a few little improvements for a few days, and then setbacks, and then stall periods. But what's hard to understand, and I wouldn't have been able to really comprehend unless I experienced or saw a loved one or someone I knew very well in that scenario to really understand what was going on, is the fatigue is not just like a beat up fatigue as we're used to experience. It's like that's your starting point. It doesn't get better or charge up from there. And then when you try to do something, you can be set back further. And what I was mentioning in the notes to you about the post-exertional malaise is called the hallmark symptom that differentiates fatigue from the fatigue that's associated with post-viral conditions. And also worth mentioning that post-viral fatigue syndrome is an alternative diagnostic name for myalgic encephalomyelitis, ME, as it's also known. Now, in the late 80s or so, that suffered the terrible branding of yuppie flu, but a lot more has been known about it since then, of course.
So you said something, and in the last email you actually sent me, I actually kind of want to read it, but I'm sure you'll be able to regurgitate if I don't. You basically explained how it's like having a battery that's half charged, which runs down super fast, and when you try and charge your battery, you just can't charge it. Now, like, I actually understood that. That made sense to me. You know, like you're running, you know, it's like almost the end of the day, you know, you've got 2 hours left. Now, imagine you start your day with that 2 hours left. But actually, as opposed to it being 2 hours, it actually runs down in 15 minutes. Your 2 hour battery life doesn't last you 2 hours. It lasts you 15 minutes. So you wake up already knowing full well that you're about to crash. And as you're progressing through your day, you crash automatically without even being able to hit that point. As soon as you try and like regain energy, it all just dissipates and it will not regain. And you're almost at point zero. You're almost like a dead battery. Like you said, you're this dead battery that does not want to work. And unlike a car where you can change your battery, you can't change a battery in us. So you're constantly running at zero. This is, you know, when I've spoken to people with ME before and they've mentioned this, I've found it very hard to comprehend, and no one's ever used that analogy before. And it really is a beautiful analogy because it's something we can all comprehend. We have a mobile phone. We have full charge. First year of having our mobile phone, our charge lasts us 2 days. Second year of having our phone, our charge lasts us 30 minutes. And we don't understand why the same battery in the phone is not having consistency. It takes longer to charge and quicker to run out. And it's that logic of, it actually made me understand the struggles you were going through. You know, my superpower is my energy. Okay, like that ADHD in running through my veins, which makes me feel like I can just keep on like a Duracell bunny, keep on going and going and going. Do you know what I mean? That's what if I lost that, I mean, I don't know what I would have to give. And I'm sitting here feeling like a little bit, you know, a little bit empathetic, a little bit, you know, sad that you were ever in a position where you felt like there was nothing left to give, nothing left to push. And, you know, that's why I started this whole episode with, you know, I want to, you know, praise you for taking the struggle and the pain you've gone through and putting it towards, you know, doing something right for other people who are going through that pain. Because even just explaining and narrativizing and, you know, helping other people around who are not feeling to emotionally understand what, you know, ME patients are going through, what post-viral fatigue patients are going through, what long COVID patients are actually going through. It's very important. Why? Because, you know, as a world, we're unfortunately lacking a hell of a lot of empathy nowadays. People don't seem to understand or even really care what other people are going through. But it's really important, especially in this world where more and more and more people are getting struck down with the ailment that, you know, not saying it used to be quite rare, but I mean, like, it wasn't really, it's not like you don't meet someone every day with ME, but at the moment you are meeting someone every day with post-COVID, you know, fatigue syndrome. It's happening. Like no, it's not the same ailment, but the effects of the ailment are happening on a more regular basis to people who are around us more. And if there is a way of helping those who are struggling and suffering through your experiences, through the experiences of ME patients, then that stuff needs to be shared. And, you know, this isn't a conversation which we've ever had on this show. It's not something we've ever discussed. It's also, like I said from the beginning, it's not something that I'm that familiar with, hence why I've been super quiet today. Most people know I talk for hours, you know, like I will never stop and I will always come in with my bit. I'm letting you talk because I'm also getting an education here. And I want to kind of, you know, now I want to know like how you've basically taken your ailment and turned it into, or basically how you found your recovery, you know, how you've treated yourself, you know, like the time it took to do that. But I also want to kind of dive into how you've taken your ailment and turned it into something positive for this world. So those are the two other subjects we want to go. So, but yeah, carry on.
Yeah, great. Thanks. No, thanks so much, Oliver. I'm just for the point to jump in there. No, that's great. I'm really pleased to get this message out. So what I was wanting to, let's say, continue on from that point would be to say, I was aware at the time that where my health was at was a really significant fork in the road, and I had choices to make. And it was clear that the frustration with the medical system, and if there's anyone listening to this who's in that position of post-viral fatigue, they'll be very familiar that you go for one appointment and, you know, maybe on the schedule this week is, well, we're going to do the spirometer lung test. Maybe there's something wrong with your lungs. You know, we do that. That's not the problem. Okay, it's another month till we're on to the next test to look at something, you know. Nothing showing up in the blood. There's a whole, you know, you get put through all the different departments of the system, and this 6 months was minimum. That's how long it took me to go through all the departments and exclude everything else. But I was aware from looking into other people's stories who'd been suffering long term, you know, like, you know, there's people out there who've been 15, 20, 30 years even, that, you know, they were maybe like at university as a student, just starting their life, you know, got struck down and had to go home and be cared, and have never recovered since, you know.
They've never recovered.
So I wanted to look into and learn what I could from all the collated experience. Now, there isn't the sort of collated experience in a form of a shared wisdom of what to be doing about it. There was more, I was just, let's say, looking over different scenarios, trying to put my own conclusions together to make my own decisions, because I was aware I was at a fork in the road. My health wasn't changing, and that trajectory was not looking good over time.
And the general advice and the help you were being offered was inconclusive. So it wasn't like you were getting an answer to your problem. So if you're not getting an answer from the people in front of you, you have to start looking behind them or around them. You have to start looking for the answer yourself, right?
Sure, that's it. I quickly found out there was no solution. There was no treatment to be expecting, and actually the treatment I was offered at the time has now been removed because it's been causing more injuries than it's been helping people. And this is again how
treatment, if you don't mind me asking.
So this was the terminology for the gradated exercise therapy. So the concept is you're having problems to increase your capacity, your exercise. You can only walk a minute a day. You can't do any more. Under doctor's supervision, they tell you, keep going, push through, keep going, push through. But what happens is you have these setbacks. Like, it was so common, the story of people went to these graded exercise treatment programs with mild fatigue, and 3 months later they were in a wheelchair and never got out. Like, that's literally what happened. And the reason this was not in the data, because the data, you have to always see how the measuring the data was, the people who didn't stick it out to the end were not included. So it's only the people who survived or were broken at the final standing count point. All those who dropped out halfway of, this is killing me, I can't continue, they were just considered dropout from the experiment. So their experience was not factored into the percentage of the overall outcomes. And so this has been recommended. Now,
I feel absolutely sick, Carl. I literally feel violently ill.
The doctor at the time, and the doctor knew me. I said, like, probably pushing myself through illness when I should take a break is probably one of my talents in what I've been doing in life. You know, just being able to keep going and do shows and things and be healthy. So, I've been doing my own graded exercise programs, and there's no future in that. So there was no other treatments available. Now, I looked into the scenario of some people who'd been in this situation for years, and over the years, their list of medications has steadily increased, and none of them are known to solve the problem. So, you know, I was aware that why should I start taking tablets that are not going to solve the problem? And it's not like you're putting in nutritional supplements. I mean, I had already developed new food allergies to foods that weren't a problem before. My system was hypersensitive. I was really having trouble processing, metabolizing everything. Why
Your
should I
immune
start
system
throwing
was
in
basically just
medications?
saying, your immune system was basically saying, nope, right? That's basically what was happening.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
time, your immune system was just giving up on you.
So
Central nervous system was giving
sure.
up on
So
you.
now this is the thing. They'll start giving you some tablets to alter your immune response, and sure, there's some ways to tone that down in the short time and different things like steroids and all. But in the bigger picture, I saw that most people were being given antidepressants, even if it wasn't depression. Now, obviously, depression can be connected to such an illness because you've lost your life and you're confined at home. But there is a way to separate in the diagnosis who actually has that as a cofactor, let's say. But my doctor had also said to me, I can offer you antidepressants. And I said, but I'm not depressed. And he said, no, we use them for off-label use to help reduce the inflammation and they'll help you to sleep. I was like, well, I don't sleep well since this trouble. Can I take them just on occasion? I said, no, you have to take them 2 weeks before they start working. So I'm like, all right, so you're going to change the working of my system to sleep a bit, remove inflammation a bit, but I've got all these other symptoms and problems, and you think that's a good idea putting that in there? So I asked my doctor, like, is there side effects? Like, for example, could I gain weight? Because I'm already having problems with my metabolism that I've never had before. I would describe the situation as I felt like I did not recognize the metabolism I was living with. And I mean that in the whole...
Also, you were a lot less active, right? You're a lot less active. Generally, when you live a lifestyle, when you're exhausted, and you're on the couch, it's not really the most healthy lifestyle anyway. I mean, you're less likely to be eating salads. You're more likely to be eating takeaway food, just generally because you're exhausted. You're less likely to go into the kitchen and cook yourself a fresh piece of fish. You're more likely to go online and order yourself something because it's just, I know it's not the same, but when I'm tired after a long day at the office, the one thing I don't want to do is make myself something healthy to eat. Do you know what I mean? It's just, It doesn't come into mind. It's like lifestyle,
that's a real big
it?
problem for people. That's a real big problem for people in this scenario as well. It's a real issue. I was lucky I had support from family to be able to help me at that time because good food was a vital part, as much as the whole cannabinoids and thing. Like, good food, that was in there. So I'd said to the doctor about antidepressants, like, is there a side effect? I'm likely to gain weight, I've read about these. And the doctor said, yeah, it's a likely side effect. Now, I said, why is that? Are they high in calories? And the doctor looked confused, like, really, can you explain why am I going to gain weight if they are not high in calories? What is the mechanism of action for that? Doctor didn't have any answer. Well, the mechanism of action for that I found out later was these tablets typically alter your gut bacteria in a negative way and allow the pathogenic negative ones to spread, and that results in weight gain from the tablets. That's generally the mechanism of action. Now,
gut microbes are gut bacteria is so fragile, and it's like almost the root cause of so many immune related issues, and so many immune related issues are treated by pummeling the body with drugs that destroy those gut bacteria. And it's like this cycle which we see a lot more now there's this education, there's this understanding, like the average individual understands that their gut bacteria, the microbes in their gut, there is good bacteria and bad bacteria. You need the bad, you need the good, but you need a balance of both. It's not about having too much good or too much bad. It's like you need to have both of them. It's like the yin and the yang. Now we know that. But I mean, it's like common knowledge, it's like it's disseminated through society so quickly now. But 10 years ago, it wasn't known. 15 years ago, it wasn't known. 20 years ago, it wasn't even discussed. Gut bacteria, what's that? Do you know what I mean? Like probiotics, What are they? So I mean, like there's a change in the way we're thinking. And look, it takes time to get adopted, but I understand this whole idea of you kind of pushing back and saying, look, like I've done my research, I'm educating myself, I'm falling to pieces here. The one thing I need to make sure is I don't fall to pieces more. The one thing I need to make sure of is that I'm not going to hurt myself more. I've had 15 doctors, all of whom, one of them on a cruise ship, all of whom have given me like conflicting information and advice regarding my ailment since the beginning. And in fact, I've got to, take my life into my own hands. I've got to make sure that I'm not going to be destroying myself any more than I already am. I understand that logic coming from you, and I like God bless you for even educating yourself to that point, because so many people at that moment would have just taken the antidepressants, even though they're not depressed, even though they're counterintuitive, they still would have taken them. Why? Because people put confidence and trust in their doctors. And unfortunately, sometimes when it comes to an ailment like this, especially, doctors don't know. Why? Because it's a general unknown. It's not that the doctors are negligent. It's that the doctors are just like science hasn't caught up yet. Science hasn't caught up to hadn't caught up to the ailment yet.
Yeah, and they don't deal with nutrition. Is there other angles? So yeah, on the gut bacteria, that has been shown in post-viral patients to be greatly disturbed. They don't know, is it a correlation, a causation, what's going on, but it's just part of the imbalance, I would say. And also I came across in my research that cannabinoid signaling is the crossroads between gut microbiota and host immunity. It is the crossroads of the signaling. So that's in there. And I saw that the patients who had this condition suffering for years, and now they're on like 15 different tablets in a day. And I'm looking at the prescription list thinking, wow, you need to be really healthy to start with to consume all those drugs and remain healthy.
A million percent. Really, sorry, you just kind of caught me mid-puff there. I wasn't expecting you to make me laugh with something. So, because it's like, I do like these conversations when you can take something so serious and not make a joke of it, because that's not what we're doing, but like take something so serious and almost have a giggle, because unfortunately, if you don't laugh, you cry, right? And if you can't,
sure.
If you can't laugh about it, if you can't see, sounds really messed up, but if you can't see the mild humor in it, then it's only going to make you angry. So I think it's quite important to see the humor and to see.
Just from a straight up logical perspective, I've got all these imbalances, sensitivities, and things going on now that. Look at this collection of tablets that could have all these potential side effects and interactions. We've not even tested them all out together, I'm sure that's a guaranteed success. So that's
a proper Molotov cocktail for the body.
At this point, sorry?
I said it's like a proper Molotov cocktail for the body.
Sure. So
like a
point,
meant to explode.
I realized myself and the doctor, we were parting ways. I was happy to go it alone because there was no other choice, and I was going to do my own research and trust my instinct. So I had come across the line about cannabinoid signaling being responsible for the body maintaining homeostasis, and I was like, wow, a loss of homeostasis seems the best sort of simple overall description of what I'm dealing with here, because otherwise we've got like 30 different symptoms on a list, and it's just pretty much.
But the whole idea of homeostasis, everything being balanced and everything currently being unbalanced, makes it's a lot easier to comprehend the fact that my body is just completely unbalanced, as opposed to saying this is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong, that's wrong. How can I target all of them? They're actually all linked to homeostasis. I understand that that it gave you some comfort, right?
That's what brought me into the research of the cannabinoid signaling. I'd also heard the story and the concept of the Rick Simpson oil, how that had come up in the early stories, let's say, around 2012, and maybe there's something in that could be helping my condition. And the other thing was that within the official medical trials, there was a trial about to start for a drug called rituximab for post-viral and ME. It was going to be a 5-year trial, and like all the patients had their hopes up on this. And from my layman's analysis, I'm just all of a sudden moved from stage and rock and roll piano playing. Now I'm into PubMed in all my waking days and energy, learning terminology and what I need to know to figure out my figure out my way forward from there. It all added up to looking like the cannabinoids was the direction of what needed to be investigated.
So let me ask you a question here quickly. At this moment of time, so like, how old are you now, or like, what year is it now?
Well, I was 30 when it happened, and I was sort of into 31, 6 months or so into the problem when I realized I was going to be on my own and into the research. So there was a trial for
When was
rituximab.
wait, just quickly, when was your first interaction with cannabis? I'll tell you why, because I wanted to ask this because you said you started, like, you came across this term, about homeostasis and cannabinoids and how they can work together.
Sure.
What was your understanding and interactions with cannabis at the time? Were you a cannabis user? Were you a recreational user? Had you smoked before? Were you anti it? As in, like, what was your actual stance?
Well, having been around the music industry, I was fairly familiar with where it fits into the spectrum, but I was not familiar, or I did not have a full understanding or appreciation for the medical potential. That would be it. That would be the way to say it. And I heard.
So you were like a party. You were like a party smoker. If you were in a bar, or so you were out and there was like you had a house party and everyone was smoking, you would have a couple of puffs on a joint. You weren't adverse to it. You weren't anti-cannabis, but you weren't like a cannabis enthusiast who saw it as the future in every capacity whatsoever.
Sure. That would that would roughly sum up. I've never been into smoking much. Let's say I've always been on the healthy side, but with vapes and all those things, they're very, and as they come up to the medical system, completely support that, and nothing against anyone who wants to be smoking whatever they want to smoke. But no, I did not have any appreciation of the medical potential, let's say. Heard the Rick Simpson story, then started to hear about stories coming out of Colorado, Charlotte's Web, and all the early days of the sort of CBD story come up before it was available in Europe, before there was a UK industry. At this point, I had got some of the very first, I think it was from some Chinese source stuff that's been selling in the States, probably from 2012, 13 or so, and I knew instinctively this is not the stuff. Like, I didn't try it and think, oh well, that's that. It didn't do anything. I've spent $150 on that, and that's that. The CBD didn't work. I was like, this doesn't seem like a good botanical extract. And from information on the internet, that turned out to be the case. So I looked into I wasn't able to physically get myself across to Colorado, so I looked into Holland as being a likely place that might be able to help someone in my dilemma, and I tracked down Wernerd Bruning in Haarlem. Wernerd, he's one of the early names in the industry. Wernerd, to start the very first coffee shop in Amsterdam, Mellow Yellow, back in the day, started Positronics and some of the first seed companies and all this type of thing. And Wernerd started the first medical clinic for supplying patients in Holland, and he was the first person I could track down who had CBD extract at the time. So I met up with Wernerd and a doctor, and also Noel van Schaik was there in the place in Haarlem. This was in 2013 autumn, and Wernerd he's a great character, and he was standing there with this bottle of golden CBD oil. Don't have analysis. There's no label. He's holding this up in the air, and he's like, Kyle, 5 years from now, the whole world is going to be talking about this stuff. I was like, yeah, that was 2013. He was there with his bottle of CBD oil. So I'll tell you one thing I'd like to throw in there in the information where the hemp extracts is all fit very well, and I think some don't have a great appreciation where they fit into the spectrum. So with let's say our cannabinoid producing plants, or higher THC plants, or the line that's outside of EU hemp, let's say, typically have higher levels of myrcene, and that's obviously something people are looking for with their pain relief and various things. But as a standalone, some of those CBD hemp extracts have really high ratios of beta-caryophyllene, that really spicy edge that comes with it, and that's known to be the CB2 agonist and tones down the immune response. And I found greatly that beta-caryophyllene was a significant modulator in there. And some of those hemp extracts in their raw form had a really high terpene to cannabinoid ratio, I'd say.
Just to throw it out there for any of our listeners, the beta-caryophyllene and the myrcene that he's just discussed, they are terpenes. So I was going to throw it in, but he's just mentioned it. But yeah, they are terpenes. We've discussed terpenes on the show before. Sorry, Carl, carry on.
Sure. No, so just saying, I saw the validity of the CBD extracts, but I had I had a couple different types of whole
So
plant
wait, hold
oils.
on. Let's go back because we've got 15 minutes left. So what I want to do in this 15
Yeah,
minutes, I want to discuss your journey through medical cannabis because now we've got a good background as to how much you were suffering. I want to understand your journey through medical cannabis, and I also want to talk about this trial that you've managed to
great.
influence in the UK. We've got literally
So
15 minutes left, so I think 5
brilliant.
minutes
Let's
on
go for it.
medical cannabis and how you got there, like, and how you managed to find your cure, and then we could do 10 minutes on the trial which you've done because I don't want to lose it. And I'll bring you on again to talk again in the future. I just really
Excellent.
want to
Let's
get
go
that.
for it.
I want to get those 2
So
points discussed on the show.
in that period from, let's say, 2013 onwards, I started improving and looking after myself, and it took a year to 2 years to get back to the full high level of functionality what I have now. But I regained the level of functionality I didn't expect and was able to maintain that and not have the setbacks, which was fantastic. So
And
we
what
come
were
up
you
to
using? What were you using
so
to help yourself?
a combination of whole plant oils, with full spectrum and some higher CBD ratio ones, and vaporizing for top up is a great benefit. So regular.
And you were sourcing
cannabinoid
everything
consumption.
through the black market, weren't you?
Well,
Or fine, let me rephrase that. Even if you were sourcing legally, unfortunately, based on the laws in the UK, when you were sourcing, everything you were sourcing wasn't legal medical cannabis. You were like me. You were
well,
a
you could say there
self-entitled
was
medicinal user.
well, you could say there was various stages and various trips abroad, and there was periods of more CBD and varying angles, let's say. So we roll up to 2018, where medical cannabis gets legalized in the UK. Obviously, the prices were significantly higher initially than they are now. They've come down quite a lot. I was aware at the time that logically they were going to come down quite a lot in time. So I was actually, yeah. So I got in touch with the clinics right from the very start, from when medical cannabis was available in the UK. But here was the thing: although it can be prescribed for any condition where 2 conventional medications have failed, the doctor has to be specialized in that area. So of the initial round of doctors they had signed up, they didn't have anyone who was confident or wanted to handle post-viral fatigue syndrome, despite my background or where I was at. So I had to wait some time. And then it was, I think, November 2019 or so when the doctor turned up who was willing to see my case and had
Amazing.
experience in this line. And so I joined into the medical system in the UK. I was my specialist's first patient, and I was talking all about what I'd been up to with the oils and going to Holland and all the research and different ratios and post-viral fatigue and why I should be avoiding all the medications, and or why I was deciding to anyway. And we had a lot of great discussions. Now,
were you the first patient in the UK to get a medical cannabis prescription for post-viral fatigue?
I believe so, yeah. I think
That's
and I believe it was the first in Scotland on the.
So you're like patient zero,
actually.
So you're like patient zero. You're like patient X.
Yeah, for
that's
fatigue
amazing.
And post-viral fatigue, and that I believe in the UK. So we had great discussions with the doctor about this, and then we roll forward to the COVID situation kicking off.
Just quickly, has he gone on to help other people based on his interaction and education from you? Has the doctor has you educating the doctor?
Dr. Liz Iveson, yeah, that I believe that I believe my case has been a good inspiration to help others, and let's say I was well versed in explaining sort of everything I'd been up to, and I was articulate on the points and all what was involved in the background, and it was all as well documented through my GP. I'd been keeping them updated and made the point to keep my GP updated to have it on my records, what I was doing. And
it was a 10-year journey though, man. Do you know what I mean? It's a long time. It's a long time to struggle, especially it's a long time to struggle feeling that helpless, feeling that weak, that helpless, that tired. It's a very long time to fight that fight. And, it's kind of amazing that, being patient X, you've actually, you being probably one of the first patients for post-viral fatigue that a doctor's seen, at least he's got someone who's educated himself beyond the point to be able to kind of help other patients not have to go through the 10-year war that he went through. And I'm sitting here, I'm just like literally blown away over the fact that I feel really sad for you that you've had the 10-year struggle that you've had. But I'm so proud of you taking that 10-year struggle and turning it into something that's helped other people. I mean, like people like you create the foundation on which this industry is built on. Without your journeys and your stories and your interactions and your education and you disseminating it onto others, like there is no education, like you said, when you first approached the doctors weren't seeing people with this ailment. But looking at you now, and seeing how much cannabis has helped you and hearing about how much cannabis has helped you, it's imperative for ailments like this to be on the system. That's only going to happen when people like you take it into their hands to make it so. And not only have you done that, let's talk about this trial that you managed to convince to happen. We've got under 10 minutes left, but this is so important.
So my specialist had made the application to get the authorization to do trials on long COVID patients in the UK, and was able to say that has the experience of treating with me post-viral fatigue syndrome. And although this is the other thing about terminology, long COVID is known to be following COVID, but all the other post-virals go into the one grouping of category, let's say. So my specialist made the application to do this trial. It's an Australian company that's supplying the medicine. They have the patient signed up. It's going to be a 6-month trial, and over the first, it's a whole plant, full spectrum CBD oil, literally 5% CBD, 0.2% THC is the product, and it's going to be titrating about over a 1 month.
So what's it, 25 to 1 or 20 to 1? Do you say 0.25 or 0.2? THC.
0.2 and
so it's a 25 to 1. That's a good product. That's a very good product.
25 to 1.
Specific terpene blend on what's it called? Specific terpene profile.
I don't have the breakdown of the specific terpene profile that they're using for the trial, other than that it's a whole plant with a 5% CBD, 0.2 THC, titrating up to a dose of, after 1 month, aiming to reach 100 milligram of CBD per day. So it's 4 milligram THC, with the option to increase to 150 milligram CBD, 6 milligram THC per day. So that's the trial that was
big doses. So what is quite interesting about the COVID, I just had a little memory, it's a little brain tick. There's a company based out of Israel called Ebna. They're a terpene company. We actually had the founder of Ebna on our show, I feel like 50 weeks ago, Eyal Nadav, and they've also just released a medical trial they did based on an amalgamation of terpenes which they've created, or a blend of terpenes that they've created and run trials on, that also stops something relating to COVID. I don't know if it's post-COVID fatigue or if it's post-COVID lung issue, if it's respiratory, but there is a lot of, cannabis information coming into the picture right now on how it can benefit COVID. Now, one of the stranger things is I think I've got a lot of friends who have had COVID, and I've got a lot of friends who haven't. The funny thing is every single one of my buddies who hasn't had COVID is a cannabis consumer, me included. As in, it's actually weird. My girlfriend takes massive doses of CBD. We've been in rooms where the next day 9 people out of 11 have got COVID, and me and my girlfriend were absolutely fine. There is definitely something. There is something there. I'm not saying that it's a fact, but there is definitely something there with cannabis and COVID where there's a symbiotic relationship where cannabis suppresses it or reduces the effects or reduces the implications of it. There's definitely something. So I've got full faith in your trial.
Well, great. Well, one thing I'd like to give a shout out to from the plant as well is the flavonoids angle. We also look at the terpenes, but the canflavin A, canflavin B, which are unique to the cannabis plant, not found anywhere else in nature, have also been shown to be connected to having potential benefits in that area, let's say. And that's as well why I've always been so passionate about the whole plant without excess filtration and various things going on after that where possible.
I understand that. I understand that. So, like, how can people find out more about this trial? How can people like find out more about your story? As in, like, tell us more about this. Like, has the trial started? Is it still available for people to join up? Are there, if there are long COVID sufferers listening to this, to this podcast and this radio show, and they haven't had any luck with conventional treatments, is there a way for them to participate and join? Is there any information which you can, like, do you have somewhere where people can come and help, come to you for help? Because like, it is such a rare ailment, the ME argument, the post-viral fatigue argument. It's so rare. And like I've said 3 times already tonight, it's something which even me, do you know what I mean, who has fully immersed myself in this world over the last, 8 years, 9 years, like it's never come into my dialogue. It's never come into my narrative. And I just wanted to like to know if people wanted to find out more, if people need education, if there are little lost Kyles out there, or Kylies, okay, or Kylies, all right, if you want to go for girls, you know what I mean? If there are boys and girls out there, men and women out there who are, either going through what you went through when you were younger, or who are going through a, like I said, this post-COVID battle, you're obviously an expert in this field. You've lived, you've got this understanding and this empathy that we just, as non-sufferers, will not understand and will not know. Like, how can they reach out to you? Where can people find information? How can people get on the trial? Like, how can we help save some souls out there?
Sure. Well, if folks want to track me down, it's through my website, kyleesplin.com, or the Scottish Hemp Association, or my company, Holistic Highland Hemp. You can find me through any of those connections. But on the trial side, so the patients are signed up for the trial, that's underway. It started earlier in the year, and I think the consumption part sort of finishes in the summer or into August or so, and then there'll be a couple months, so the data recording, write-ups, and all the reporting. So I think it's probably start of next year. The results will be out from that. But in the meantime, tell people, of course, always do their own research, look into things, and on the clinic side, they can contact through the legal cannabis clinics that are in the UK. And if they've had two conventional treatments that have failed from the doctor, then they're eligible to.
Fine. So who's your clinic, Carl? Who did you go to? Because here's another thing: not every clinic has the same products. Not every clinic has the same experiences dealing with patients. One thing we're going to see over the next few years is we're really going to start to see specialization. The same way that you have, chiropractors, and you have cardiologists, and you have oncologists, and you have all these different doctors. I don't actually know what those 3 things do. They're the first 3 which came to mind. So you have all these different doctors who specialize in their different fields. And right now, cannabis is, don't get me wrong, you go to a specialized doctor, but the clinics are very, multi-purpose. And I do believe that as time goes on, clinics are going to become more specialized. The chances are, with such a rare ailment like you suffer with, most clinics will not have a doctor, the same way that when you first approached them, they didn't have a doctor. The chances are they still won't have a doctor. Who is your clinic? Who has helped you circumnavigate this? And would you recommend patients to go to them? Or do you know of other clinics out there who are also offering the same services?
Well, the specialist is Dr. Elizabeth Iveson, who can be found through both her own practice, and also I'd joined through medical cannabis clinics. All the different clinics will typically list their doctors on the website as to what their area of speciality is. So that was the one factor. Now, I also hope that since the trials are underway and this is, let's say, more known about, and there's patients going, that should also open up other doctors should be comfortable or say that they feel they're qualified to now handle that case.
Because they have the education now, they have the information now, so they should be able to do that. And what's it called? So let's talk about. We got 1 minute left. Let's talk about you. So you've got your cannabis. You've got your, so you've got your cannabis. You've influenced this trial. And how's your health now?
Great.
The last minute, we might as well talk about your health and how
really
are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm honestly feel so blessed to have regained what I say is a high level of functionality and wellness, and to keep well and not have setbacks. I really cherish it, you know. Really do.
I think that's absolutely amazing. And like I said, the fact that you're putting so much effort into helping other lost souls like yourself, you know, like yourself at the start of your journey, the fact that you've even come on this show today to share your story, and you've shared your story, you know, a lot in recent years. And, you know, I want to say thank you very much. Like I said, from the depth of my heart, and, you know, on behalf of everyone in our industry, thank you so much for the education you've brought to the industry. Thank you so much for your help building this foundation, and thank you so much for encouraging these trials. You know, hopefully, fingers crossed, thousands of people will be able to get the help which previously did not exist. And that's, you know, I'll be honest with you, that's something to be really freaking proud of, man. It's something to be really proud of, and I want to say I'm really proud of you. Anyway, that's our hour. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us. Please, if you have issues which we've discussed on this show, reach out to Kyle. And yeah, thank you all so much for supporting the show. Thank you for supporting the ABC of CBD. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.